Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay, and this is my presentation for animal behavior on the topic of chimpanzee behavior around death and dying. Just a brief introduction overview. Chimps share many of the same characteristics and behaviors as humans do. Humans share 98.8% of our DNA with chimps. And then why is this topic important? Since we share so much DNA with chimps, studying this topic can help us find similarities between the way that we grieve and the way that chimps grieve, and potentially help us understand our own grief better. Before I went over grieving behavior in chimps, I thought it might be a good idea to go over just the emotions that chimps can display. They can display a wide array of emotions, including joy, anger, sadness, fear, jealousy, and even empathy, among many other emotions. So there is an overlap here for some of the emotions that chimps display and emotions that humans can feel. Chimps display these emotions in a different way than humans do. And then I wanted to briefly talk about grooming behavior because we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But there's a picture that is a representation of grooming behavior in chimps. Grooming behavior is a very important behavior in chimp communities. It's a very important social behavior, and it's kind of like socializing. It's kind of like how they socialize away, and it helps maintain bonds and status in the chimp communities. So there are varying behavioral responses to death and dying among chimps and different chimp communities. I found a study from Anderson 2018, and it kind of went through a few different examples. So I'm going to talk about example number one, go through that now. So example number one that Anderson gave was two young chimps living in captivity, and they lost their cage mate. One of the chimps sat silently next to his dead cage mate, and when the body was removed, he became very agitated. The second chimp made very loud vocalizations and had a temper tantrum. When his cage mate died, he was observed pulling, pushing, and lifting the head and hand of his dead cage mate. He remained agitated for the rest of the day, even after the body was removed. So the second example that Anderson 2018 mentioned, this occurred in Gombe, and I put a map of where Gombe is in case you're not familiar. And this was with eastern chimpanzees. And there was a sudden death of an adult male chimp. He unfortunately fell out of a tree. The other chimps made very loud vocalizations, and there was very frequent visual inspection and smelling of the dead body, but there was no physical contact to the dead body. The third example from Anderson 2018 occurred in Tai, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, National Park, and I put up a map of where Tai National Park is because I wasn't sure where it was. And this was when a leopard killed an adolescent female chimp, and this was with Western chimpanzees. So in terms of behavioral response with the death of this adolescent female, the other chimps in the community were frequently touching the body, specifically grooming, and holding her hand and pulling her hand. The adult males were observed dragging the body for several meters. And then also the adult males prevented some chimps from approaching the body. And this was mostly infants and low-ranking females. The fourth example of behavioral responses to death and dying among chimps, this came from Van Leeuwen et al. 2016. And this happened with a 9-year-old chimp. He was named Thomas, and he died from viral and bacterial infections. and this took place in northwest Zambia in a chimpanzee sanctuary. The chimp species was not noted in the study, so I'm not sure 100% what species of chimps these were. Some of the behaviors that were noted was frequent inspecting of the body, hitting the body, watching the body, sitting silently by Thomas, physically inspecting the body. Those were all very common behaviors among other chimp group members. The interesting behavior that I found that was noted in the study, which before I get into that, the top strip of images, those two pictures, those are chimps sitting around Thomas. I'm now going to talk about the bottom strip of photos, which I thought was very interesting. Teeth cleaning was a behavior that was displayed by one of the adult female chimps. Her name's Noelle. So the bottom strip of pictures is of Noelle cleaning Thomas's teeth, and she's using just a grass stem to do that. I found that very interesting. I was not expecting that. Before we move into the maternal behavior towards infant death, I just wanted to add from the previous slide that, as you can see, there's a lot of different behaviors to death and dying, and we don't know why certain groups respond this way versus that way. It could be a difference in species, but there are definitely differences that I noted in all of those different examples that I presented. So now we're going to turn towards maternal behavior towards infant death, and the mother-infant bond is arguably the strongest bond that chimps have. This is from a 2011 study from Cronin et al. And they looked at the chimpanzee mother's response to her dead infant. And I included this chart because it has it breaks it down really well. It talks about the infant-directed behavior, the description, the frequency, how many times did it happen, and then it kind of goes into supplemental examples and that kind of thing. So the most common behavior that was exhibited in the study was gazing, and then that was followed by fly swatting, which is basically swatting flies from around her dead infant. Some of the other behaviors that this mother exhibited were touching the neck, touching the face, and holding her hand above the infant's face. And it was also observed by researchers that she was carrying the body of her dead infant. So then that kind of leads us to the next question of, why do chimpanzee mothers carry their dead infants? And this is a behavior that's very common among chimp mothers, to carry their dead infants. We don't know why they do this, but I wanted to look into some hypotheses for this. The photo on the right is an example of how a chimp mother would carry her deceased infant. A study from Lonsdorf et al. Looked at some hypotheses for why chimp mothers carry their dead infants. Hypothesis 1 suggests that physiological conditions that chimp mothers experience during pregnancy and birth would result in continued care of the dead infant until lactation stopped and cycling resumed, which would result in the corpse being abandoned. Hypothesis 2 suggests that older infants, due to having a stronger bond with their mother, are more likely to be carried or carried for longer than the younger infants. Hypothesis 3 suggests that because dry climates can slow decomposition, this may cause mothers to carry their infants. And then hypothesis 4, the last one, suggests that the chimp mother is completely unaware that her infant is dead. The study, Lonsdorf et al., found no support for any of these hypotheses. So we have really no idea why chimp mothers carry their dead infants. So if you have a hypothesis for why chimp mothers carry their dead infants, engage in this behavior, I'd love to hear what your hypothesis is in the comments. And then future outlook and conclusion. We definitely need more research in this area, specifically on how chimp communities react to death and dying, and specifically their behavioral responses. There are quite a few studies on behavioral responses of chimp mothers to their dead infants, but limited studies on how chimps react to death within their community. And then we also need more research on why chimp mothers carry their dead infants, especially since this is such a common behavior. And we need to develop more hypotheses for why the chimp mothers carry their dead infants and then test these hypotheses. And then even adding another layer to this, we should look at how behaviors among chimps may differ between the different species of chimps in relation to death. And then just to kind of very briefly conclude, chimps are highly intelligent. They display a high level of intelligence and emotional intelligence. And there are many similarities and differences between how they grieve and how humans grieve. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And then here are my references.